Hello and welcome to Shikra Academy's UPSC Mains PYQ series. In this series, we are discussing all the GS Mains questions asked by UPSC over the past few years. In today's session, we will be discussing the 2022 GS Paper 2, question number 16 to question number 20. Okay, so we'll be discussing 5 questions today. So let's start with question number 16. That is the first question of the day. Beside the welfare schemes, India needs deft management of inflation and unemployment to serve the poor and underprivileged sections of the society. Discuss. A 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, this particular question has been asked from the topic, from the subject of social justice, and the topic is mainly, broadly speaking, government policies and intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising out of that. Okay. So now here we are given a statement and we need to discuss that particular statement. Now, the approach that we'll take in answering such a question is that in introduction, we describe the welfare schemes because the question is talking about the welfare schemes. So we'll describe the welfare schemes in the introduction. Then in body of the answer, we address the demand of the question by writing about or by discussing the statement by writing impact of inflation on the poor and unemployment and its social implications because we have to discuss that statement that was given. Then in conclusion, we'll write a way forward. Okay, and that way forward should be it should include a balanced economic strategy. Okay, we'll write a way forward that encompasses a balanced economic strategy. So, starting with the introduction, while India has launched numerous welfare schemes to uplift the poor and underprivileged sections, such as the PM Kisan Yojana, the MG Narega, and the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana (PMAY), sustainable poverty reduction demands more than welfare transfers. Okay, to sustainably reduce poverty, okay, in order to eliminate poverty, it requires more than the welfare measures. Okay, it requires effective management of inflation and providing employment to the population or to the masses. Okay, so the effective management of inflation and unemployment is crucial to ensure a lasting socio-economic stability for the marginalized communities. Then the impact of inflation on poor. Okay, why it is required? It is required because the poor sections of the society or the marginal sections of the society are very negatively impacted by the inflation. Okay, so first is the erosion of real income. Inflation disproportionately affects the poor. Okay, as they spend a larger share of their income on the essentials like the food and fuel. Okay, so if inflation is there, so uh, across the population the effect is noted, but the poor section of the society, they are particularly and disproportionately affected because they spend a large share of their income on essential items like the food and fuel. Okay, so for them, the basic necessities, they become expensive. Okay, the middle class and the upper middle class or the rich class people, they can afford or they can tackle the inflation, okay, by changing their consumption habits. Then there is inequality widening. Rising prices reduce the purchasing power. Okay, so the purchasing power of the poor population, it reduces, and which pushes these vulnerable groups deeper into poverty. Okay, so the inflation makes poor the poorer and rich the richer. So that's the C. Then the policy imperatives. Okay, what the policy should aim at. Policy should aim at maintaining a price stability through monetary policy by the RBI and strengthening supply chains for food and essentials like the food and fuel. Okay, then encouraging or the agriculture productivity and public distribution efficiency, increasing the agriculture productivity and ensuring that there is effective distribution. Okay, there is an effective distribution of the agriculture produce that has been uh, that is in the market or that the government has procured. Then the unemployment and its social implications or its policy measures, what should be there. So the nature of unemployment. So India faces both the structural as well as disguised form of unemployment, especially in the rural and informal sectors. Okay, so we face the structural employment as well as the disguised form of unemployment, particularly in the informal sector of the economy, in the as well as in the rural parts of the country. The consequences of that, okay, is that unemployment leads to income insecurity, social unrest, and migration. Okay, this unemployment, it leads to income insecurity among the population, a social unrest and migration. Then the policy measures. Okay, what policy measures we can take in order to overcome these unemployment issues, related issues. So first is promoting labor intensive industries. Okay, promoting labor intensive industries like the textile sector. Okay, and the promotion of the MSMEs, because MSMEs are a major job provider in the country, and expanding the skill development programs like the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. Okay, enhancing the skills of the population or the skills of the youth, encouraging the entrepreneurship and digital employment platforms. Okay, so by encouraging skill development, by encouraging entrepreneurship, okay, by promoting labor intensive industries, we can make sure that a large section of the population or the large section of the youth gets employment. Then in conclusion, we can write about a balanced economic strategy. Okay, so the welfare schemes, okay, they should complement, okay, not substitute the macroeconomic stability. The welfare schemes should complement and not substitute the macroeconomic stability. And the targeted fiscal spending, okay, the government should aim for a targeted fiscal spending, inflation control and job creation to form a virtuous cycle. Okay, there should be a virtuous cycle of inclusive growth and social equity. Okay, so, in conclusion, we can write to truly serve the people, India must go beyond the welfare distribution. There is a need that we should go beyond the welfare distribution, go beyond the welfare schemes, go beyond providing things like for free or the freebies. Okay, going beyond the freebies and focus on price stability and productive employment generation. Okay, so there should be a control on inflation, as well as the government should try to open new avenues for employment generation. A balanced economic approach ensures empowerment with dignity, which is the essence of the sustainable development. Okay. So moving on to the next question, that is question number 17. Do you agree with the view that increasing dependence on donor agencies for development reduces the importance of community participation in the development process? Justify your answer. A 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that has been asked from the subject of social justice. The question has been asked from the social justice, and the topic is the role of NGOs, SHGs, or various groups and associations and donors. Okay, the role of various donor agencies. Okay, so we have to discuss that. So the approach that we'll take in answering such a question is that in introduction we write the impact of the donor agencies. Okay, we'll write about the donor agencies and what impact that they create. Then in body, we address the demand of question by writing the impact of donor agency dependence. Okay. If we become dependent on these donor agencies, what positive or what negative impact that it will have. Then we write about the second half of the answer about the importance of community participation, or whether this dependence on donor agency has reduced the importance of community participation. Then in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer and will provide a balanced approach to the with a balanced approach. So, starting with the introduction. So, development is most sustainable when it emerges from the local participation and ownership. Okay, so community participation and community ownership, okay, is must or is vital for development. However, the growing dependence on donor agencies. Okay, there has been a tendency of growing dependence on the donor agencies, both the international as well as domestic donor agencies. Okay, and that has altered the nature of development process. Okay, this dependence on the donor agencies has impacted, okay, and has altered the nature of the development process, and this has sometimes also this is undermining the community based initiatives or the community led initiatives. Okay, so now we discuss in the body about the impact of donor agency dependence. Okay, so we have the top down approach. So the donor funded projects. Okay, so donor funded projects often prioritize external goals and timelines, leading to centralized decision making process. Then the impact is reduced local ownership. So when funding and expertise come from outside, okay, be it at the national level or at the from the international level, the local communities may feel alienated. Okay, they may feel that every decision or money is coming from outside. The decisions have been are being enforced from outside. Okay, so they may feel alienated, and which reduces their active involvement in the development process. Then the conditional aid. Some donor agencies, they frequently attach policy and procedural conditions. Okay, so the funding comes with certain conditions, okay, which shift the priorities away from the local needs. Then there are sustainability concerns. So the local projects that are dependent on external funding may collapse when the aid or the fund ends. Okay, so once the funding ends, or once the aid that is coming from the outside, okay, from the donor agencies, once that aid ends, okay, so the project that is dependent on that funding, that also collapses or ceases to exist. Okay, because that project, it lacks grassroots support and capacity. Now, the importance of community participation. Okay, why it should not undermine community participation? Why the having donations from outside should not undermine the community participation? Because it leads to empowerment and accountability. Involving local communities ensures transparency, better resource utilization, and a sense of responsibility. Okay. Then there are cultural relevance. Okay, the local knowledge of the local communities. Okay, they enhances they enhance the project's relevance and adaptability in their local region. So examples, the programs like the self-help groups, the watershed development, the Gram Sabhas under the Panchayati Raj have shown success through these participatory approaches, the community participation approaches. So we can write about the balanced approach. So while the donor agencies provide us with vital resources and expertise, okay, so no doubt the donor agencies, they provide with vital resources and the expertise, but the true development requires a synergy between the external support as well as the local participation. Okay, external support alone cannot ensure the development, a true development at the grassroots level. Okay, it requires the local participation. So there is a need to empower communities. So empowering communities in planning, in implementation and monitoring ensures inclusivity and a long-term impact in the development process. Then in conclusion, we can write the answer because our views has been asked. So we can write yes, the excessive dependence on donor agencies can reduce community participation. Okay, and a sustainable development model must integrate the donor resources with the community ownership. Okay, so there should be a balance between donor resources, the external resources that are coming, and the community or the local ownership that ensures that the people remain active agents and not mere or not just the passive beneficiaries of the development. Then moving on to the next question, that is question number 18. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, or the RTE Act of 2009. It remains inadequate in promoting the incentive-based system for children's education without generating awareness about the importance of schooling. We have to analyze this statement. Now, this is also a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Okay. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of governance, and the topic is issues related to development and management of social sector or services related to education. Okay, this is a question on basically on the right to education. Okay. So in the introduction, we can describe this RTE Act of 2009. We can write about the right to education, right to compulsory education for children. Then in body, because we have to analyze that statement. So analyze means we have to answer two things. We need to write about achievements of the RTE Act and highlight the inadequacies and challenges that are associated with the Act. And then, because we have highlighted inadequacies and challenges, then in conclusion, we'll provide the way forward. Okay, we'll provide some of the recommendation, like what should be the path, or what should be the steps that we need to take in the future. So starting with the introduction, the right of children to free and compulsory education, that is RTE Act of 2009, enacted under Article 21A of the Constitution. It guarantees free and compulsory education to children between 6 to 14 years of age. Now, while the Act, this RTE Act itself is landmark in expanding the access to education. Okay, so it expanded educational access, but its effectiveness in promoting an incentive-based learning system remains limited without the parallel efforts to raise the community awareness about the value of education. Okay, so it has faced certain challenges. Okay, so it has not been able to effectively promote the incentive-based learning system. So in the body, you can write about the achievements of the RTE Act, or what we have achieved. So access to schooling, there has been increased school enrollment rates, especially among the girl child and the marginalized groups. Okay, so the children of the marginalized groups, okay, as well as the girl child, their enrollment in school has increased substantially. Then there are infrastructure and teacher norms. So the RTE Act, it mandates a pupil teacher ratio and trained teachers and school facilities. Okay, so a basic level of infrastructure and the quality of teachers or the trained teachers. Okay, that basic level is provided in this act. Okay, then prohibition of discrimination. Now this RTE Act ensures the inclusion of 25% reservation for weaker sections in the private schools. Okay, so now private schools are also mandated to fill 25% of their seats, okay, or to reserve 25% of their seats for the economically weaker sections of the society. Now, what inadequacies or challenges this act is facing? Okay, so first is the lack of motivation and incentives. So while schooling is free, the no structured incentive framework, okay, there has been a lack of a structured incentive framework such as performance linked benefits or skill based learning rewards, which encourage a sustained engagement of the of the children, of the parents, of the teachers in the school. Then there are poor awareness and socio-cultural barriers. Many families, particularly in the rural areas, in the village areas, they still view education as non-essential compared to the livelihood needs. Okay, so especially the poorer families in the rural background, okay, they view livelihood great, as compared to education and livelihood, they give more emphasis to livelihood, okay, ways to earn money rather than the education, okay, the early education of the child. Then there is quality deficit. The focus on enrollment over learning outcomes has led to rote based education and early dropouts. Okay, so government also, okay, there's a lot of focus on increasing the enrollment ratio, okay, increasing the quantity, okay, the number of children in the schools over their quality learning outcomes, okay, and that has led to early dropouts, okay, and that has also in a way also spoiled the early education system. Okay, there has been more focus on the rote based education rather than the quality learning outcomes. Then there is weak implementation. The limited accountability and uneven monitoring reduce the act's transformative potential. Then we can give some suggestions, okay, or the way forward, because we have highlighted the challenges. Now to overcome those challenges, we need to provide certain way forward. So first is to integrate community mobilization and parental awareness campaigns. Then second is to introduce an incentive-based schemes like the scholarship, the vocational linkage, and attendance-linked benefits. Okay, we need to provide certain incentives. Third is the we need to strengthen the teacher training and the local governance participation for the overall accountability. Okay. So in conclusion, we can write that the RTE Act provides the legal foundation for the universal education, but without the awareness, okay, without the grassroots awareness and the incentive-driven motivation or the incentive uh, or the incentives, okay, this act it risks remaining a formal entitlement. Okay, so this uh, foundation or this universal education, okay, this entitlement it merely remains a formal entitlement rather than a transformative social movement. So in order to convert this RTE Act into a larger social movement, okay, we need to raise the awareness at the local grassroots level, okay, and we need certain incentives that drive the motivation of the students, of their families, as well as the teachers. Now, moving on to the next question, that is question number 19. How will I2U2, that is India, Israel, UAE, USA grouping, transform India's position in global politics? Okay, so we have to answer this 15-mark question in 250 words, quite a direct question on the I2U2 grouping. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of international relations, and the topic is the bilateral, regional, global groupings and agreements involving India. Okay, so this is a question on the I2U2 grouping. So, talking about the approach. So, in introduction, we describe this I2U2 grouping. Okay, what this grouping stands for, what it aims. Okay. Then in body, we address the demand of question by writing about the strategic significance of this I2U2 grouping for India, and how it is leading or how it is significant for a transformation in the global politics or the global geopolitics. Then in conclusion, we can summarize the answer. So starting with the introduction. So the I2U2 grouping comprising of India, Israel, that is I2, and UAE and the US, that is U2. Okay. It was launched in 2021 as a quadrilateral partnership. So it's a quadrilateral partnership for cooperation in trade, technology, climate, and food security infrastructure. Okay. And this I2U2 is often referred as the West Asian Quad. Okay. So we have a quad, okay, quad group in which India and US, okay, they are shared partners there. Okay, so Quad comprises of India, US, Australia, and Japan. Okay, and this I2U2, often dubbed as the West Asian Quad. Okay, so it comprises of India, Israel, UAE, and USA. So this alliance, okay, symbolizes a new phase in India's multilateral diplomacy, linking South Asia, West Asia, and the West. So this is a grouping. Okay, we can't say it a regional grouping. Okay, it's a multilateral diplomacy platform. Okay, which links South Asia because India is in South Asia, the West Asia because Israel and UAE are in South Asia, and the West because the Western world is US dominated. So from the West. Okay, so this is a multilateral diplomacy channel or a multilateral diplomacy platform. Now, its strategic significance for India. So first is bridging the regions. So this enables India to integrate its Act West policy with its broader Indo-Pacific vision, connecting Asia with the Middle East and the US. Okay, so bridging the regions. Then energy and food security. So projects like UAE funded food parks in India and the renewable energy collaboration with Israel and US strengthened the India's economic resilience. Then in technology and innovation, so there has been cooperation in digital infrastructure, clean energy, and space technology, which enhances India's technological capabilities and the global competitiveness. Then there is geopolitical leverage. By aligning both the Arab and the Western powers, India expands its diplomatic influence in West Asia. Okay, so now India, because we have excellent relations with the Arab powers, okay, with the Arab world as well as the Western world. Okay, so now we are expanding our diplomatic influence in West Asia. Okay, and balancing ties with both Iran as well as US. Okay, so Iran and US they are on the opposite side of diplomacy, or okay, they remain nemesis to each other. Okay, but we need to balance our ties with both Iran and US because both are our strategic partners. Then the transformation in global politics. Okay, so how this transforms India's role in global geopolitics. So it positions India as a key connector between regions. Okay, so India becomes a key connector between regions, like linking democracies and the emerging economies. And it strengthens India's image as a responsible global actor, addressing transnational challenges like the climate change and supply chain disruption. Okay. Then it also enhances our strategic autonomy. Okay, it enhances India's strategic autonomy, and it complements India's participation in other groups like the Quad and the BRICS. Okay, so we are members of different groups. We are members of Quad. We are members of BRICS. We are member of SCO. Okay, we are member of I2U2. That's how we because we follow the strategic autonomy. We have a strategic autonomy. Okay, and we can. Um, our diplomacy is not uh, unilateral, okay, or we complement India's participation, or we actively involve, okay, with all the groupings, with all the major powers of the world. Okay, so then in conclusion, we can write that the I2U2 grouping, okay, so this group, it marks India's shift from a regional player to a global strategic partner, deepening its role in shaping the global the geoeconomics as well as the geopolitics of the 21st century through innovation, cooperation, and strategic balance. Then moving on to the final question, that is question number 20. Clean energy is the order of the day. Now, describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change in various international fora in context of geopolitics. Okay, a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Okay, now this is not a direct question. Okay, this is an applied question in which they have asked about the clean energy. They are linking energy, environment, and geopolitics here. Okay, so roughly this question has been asked on the subject of international relations, and the topic is effect of policies and politics of developing countries and the important international institutions and the fora. Okay. So because we are given an introductory statement in the question, okay, that is clean energy is the order of the day. Now this is the introductory statement. So these introductory statements that are given in the question must be dealt with the in the introduction of the answer itself. Okay, so we'll elaborate this introductory statement. Okay, then in body we write about India's changing climate policy and the role in international fora. Okay, the role of climate change in international fora. Okay, in the international forums. Okay, then in conclusion we will summarize the answer. So starting with the introduction, clean energy is the order of the day, and this aptly reflects the shift in global geopolitics where climate action now defines. Okay, it is the climate action that defines international cooperation and competitiveness. Okay, India was once perceived as a developing nation that prioritized growth over environment. Okay, so India as a developing nation, so it must be thought or it was perceived that India prioritizes growth over environment. But now India has emerged as a proactive leader. Okay, India has emerged as a proactive leader in clean energy diplomacy. Okay, because we are a developing nation. Okay, earlier we were a low income economy as well. Okay, so for us, the more the priority was on cheap energy or the traditional sources of energy, okay, that were relatively cheaper. And this clean energy, okay, because it's costly, okay, it involves extra cost. Okay, so it was perceived that India will not prioritize the clean energy, but now India is emerging as a proactive leader in this clean energy diplomacy around the world. So, India's changing climate policy, what led to this change? So, from resistance to leadership. Okay, first we were resistant, okay, because of our economic condition. Now we are providing a leadership to we are leading, okay, the arena of geopolitics in clean energy. Earlier, India emphasized on common but differentiated responsibilities, that is CBDR, under UNFCCC, that is United Framework Convention on Climate Change, seeking equity in the carbon commitments. But over time, India has moved towards a constructive engagement and innovation led solutions. The Paris Agreement, okay, or the Paris Pact of 2015, okay, in that COP21 of Paris Agreement, India pledged to reduce the emission intensity by 45% by 2030. So by 2030, we'll reduce our carbon emission intensity by 45% and will achieve 50% of energy from non-fossil sources. Okay, so India has committed that by the time year 2030 comes, so 50% of energy that India produces, okay, or India's energy requirements, 50% of it will be fulfilled by the uh, renewable energy, okay, from the non-fossil sources, okay, and will attain a net zero in carbon emissions by 2070. Okay, then in Glasgow COP26 commitments, India launched the Panchamrit strategy. Okay, so we launched the Panchamrit strategy under COP26. So please note that this Paris Agreement as well as the Glasgow COP26, they were agreements under the UNFCCC. Okay, and with this Panchamrit strategy, we reaffirmed our long-term decarbonization goals and leadership in climate responsibility. Then the role in international fora. Okay, so what role India played, okay, on the international forums leading to or pertaining to the climate change as well as the clean energy. So first is the International Solar Alliance. It was co-founded by India and France. Okay, so International Solar Alliance was co-founded by India and France, and India promotes solar energy deployment. Okay, this International Solar Alliance promotes the solar energy deployment across more than 120 countries. Okay, including the tropical as well as subtropical or temperate countries. Okay, Then we have the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, or CDRI, which advocates climate resilience infrastructure, integrating climate action into the global development. The G20 and BRICS platform, both of which India is a part. Okay, so India pushes for climate justice, the green finance, technology transfer, balancing development and the environment. Then the I2U2 grouping that we have just discussed, and the Indo-Pacific initiatives. So collaborations for renewable energy and clean tech investment strengthens the India's geopolitical influence. Then in conclusion, we can summarize the answer by writing. So India's evolving climate diplomacy. Okay, the India's climate diplomacy underscores its shift from a reactive to a leadership role. Okay, so earlier we were very reactive, okay, to the developments that were taking place around the world, but now we are actively, or we are leading the talks regarding climate change as well as clean energy. Okay, so we combine this energy transition with geopolitical strategy. So by aligning sustainability with growth, India positions itself as a global advocate of equitable, clean, as well as resilient development. Okay. So that was the 2022 GS2 question paper that we have discussed in the 4 live sessions. Thank you.